It is another day, another orange and blue today with Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason. Andrew Mason on assignment at the Super Bowl. And Mase, you had a very interesting night at Media Night talking to some former Broncos.
Yes, that was job one. Catch up with players who'd moved on. At this time last year, I was chatting with Melvin Gordon, who was on the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad. And last night, had a chance to catch up with Randy Gregory and Montrell Washington. And I would say, even though they weren't two of the best Broncos of the last couple of years, probably two with the most interesting and maybe polarizing arcs that we've seen around the Denver Broncos in recent times.
Yeah, they are definitely names and players that when you bring it up to fans, they'll respond in a certain way that we can predict. But how did it feel last night in talking to these former Broncos? And start with Gregory or Washington, either one.
We'll start with Randy Gregory because, he's talked about how he struggles with social anxiety. And on a personal level, I was a little worried about how the environment of that opening night, media night, was going to be for him. I think it helped him that he was able to see people that he knew from other places. Like when I talked with him, there was also a reporter from Dallas around. I knew somebody connected with the University of Nebraska, his alma mater, came up to him, and I feel like that helped him. But I mean, hey, he gave me a hug when he saw me. I think he was genuinely happy to see some familiar faces around, people they talk with. And he was very cordial about how things went down. He talked a little bit about players he keeps in touch with. He told me he talks with DJ Jones quite a bit. The DJ reached out after the Niners made the Super Bowl. Still talks a lot with Baron Browning and Nick Benito as well, and everyone in that edge room. He's still tight with the guys in the outside linebacker room.
Yeah, and should feel good about I don't know, not necessarily favor, but the position that the Broncos put him in. And the Broncos have done this before. Emmanuel Sanders springs to mind, with the 49ers springs to mind. But it's a good kind of gesture teams can make when they need to move on from a guy, but they can put him in a position where he fits and he can win.
Yeah, and in fact, let's hear from him. There are a couple of things that we've got from him for today's show. But let's start with him talking about how the Broncos handled his departure. I asked Randy point blank, did the Broncos do right by you? And he started by saying definitely, and this is what he had to say.
At the end of the day, like I said earlier, put me in the right position right now to, play in the Super Bowl. A lot of that stuff, it'll unfold how it wants to unfold. Got a lot of guys in that locker room and on that staff that I really do care about. My time in Denver, I really enjoyed that stuff. My family there and stuff like that. So nothing bad I can honestly say about that. But business is business. The league is what it is, and there's something that needs to be done probably on both sides.
Okay, Joey, let's roll the other clip. The other clip is the one that wanted to roll. So let's get that one up.
Definitely. I can honestly say that they did what they could to put me in a position to, further help my career. Specifically George Payton. I think, me and him got a real good relationship. Another guy I have a lot of respect for in that building. And, I wish I could still be out there with him, but, I'm happy to be here, man.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Both of those clips, very interesting what he had to say.
Yeah, let's talk about the George Payton thing, because I've seen the reaction on social media, because I put this clip out earlier today. And the reaction is, of course he likes George Payton. George gave him $28 million guaranteed, right? Okay,
yeah.
And yeah, I can be kind of flippant as well. I get that sentiment. But there's also something more to it. And this actually, it does go back to John Elway. One of the things that was a perception among player circles around the league is that the Broncos didn't do right by their players, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they waited forever to pay their own players. They got a bad
Uh-huh.
reputation under Elway for doing that.
They did. They really did. And one of the aspects of George Payton that distinguishes himself is that he has a much better reputation with players and with agents as somebody who isn't looking to make a deal, like to make a deal that's a steal. He's trying to make a fair deal. Sometimes I think John Elway's years in the automotive business, the John Elway dealerships, sometimes I think those did not do him a favor when it came to the NFL, because it's almost like he went into every possible trade or negotiation thinking, I want to get a deal, right? I want to get a deal here. I want to win the deal. And you're basically like, if you're the customer, I got a great deal, or if you're the dealer, like you want to win the deal as well. George Payton operates with a sense of, okay, let's make sure we do something that works for everybody. He's very good at the mutually beneficial trade. Obviously, yeah, did it always work? No, Russell Wilson. But you think like the Javonte Williams trade, for example. I know the Broncos, they put up the video of the back and forth that he was having before that deal was made, and how that he got kind of a later pick to balance the scales a little bit. I think that's actually one thing that may keep George Payton around. And I know a lot of Bronco fans don't want to hear that.
Well, don't they need that balance with Sean Payton, who has his own reputation of dealing with players and people a certain way? Isn't it a nice, yin and yang back and forth that you can have the guy that's hard-fisted, iron fist, and then George Payton with a lighter touch?
I think so. Now, that being said, of course, we have everything that came out, however you want to describe it, whether it was, threatened of Russell Wilson to bank him if he didn't waive the injury guarantee or delay the injury guarantee or not. But by and large, over the broader spectrum, George Payton has a reputation of being somebody who's going to be pretty fair with his players and also pretty fair with the other people, whether it's agents or other GMs with whom he's negotiating. And getting Randy Gregory to San Francisco, a place where, even though he's not starting anymore, he's a rotational player, it seems like he's settled in really well into that environment. And here he is, he's going to be in the Super Bowl. I think that's something that won't go unnoticed by a lot of players in that locker room, that when Gregory wanted to move on, and when it clearly wasn't working with Sean Payton, Gregory had lost the starting gig. His playing time was starting to go down. It would have gone down further when Baron Browning came back. That they were able to accommodate him and not ship him off to like Carolina, which was having a wretched season, but able to get into a place where he had a chance to be a part of some big things as the 49ers are here in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and we'll watch in the Super Bowl. Maybe Randy Gregory makes a big play on
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Wouldn't surprise me.
You could see it happen in this big game. And a big game, I don't know. I don't want to be cruel, but I'm not sure if Montrell's going to be active for the game, as he's been inactive most of the time with the Chiefs. But it's interesting how George Payton is seen by these players. We see, or fans would see, Montrell Washington as a huge mistake. Mm-hmm. George would think differently. Maybe Russell Wilson would think differently. And then your thoughts with Montrell Washington catching up with him at the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, another guy who seemed happy to see people from Denver when they came up. Very interesting. Obviously, Randy Gregory, he's a player who's going to get some attention, maybe not podium worthy, but he's going to get some attention. He's hard to miss. Montrell Washington, he's on the practice squad. He's played 2 games since week 6 because he played against the Broncos. That was his 4th game in a row. And you remember he muffed a punt in that game.
Right.
Now, that's the only punt or kickoff that he fielded that he lost control of. So 13 touches overall, including fair catches. Only one of them had a fumble. That's getting better, but I think it was interesting that after that fumble, and he actually fumbled twice on one return, a muff and then a fumble at the end, and he recovered one, and the other one out of bounds. It was interesting that after that, they didn't really return to him. He only got out there in 2 more games the rest of the season. So
Right.
you do wonder where things are going to go for Montrell Washington. His goal is to be on the 53 next year. But Kansas City, a team that we know is kind of thin on receivers, and Montrell still couldn't find his way to get extensive playing time. I think they're going to give him another offseason and see, and maybe it comes together for him like it came together for Isaiah McKenzie when he went back for a 3rd season in the NFL, a 2nd season with Buffalo.
Right.
But it probably wasn't trending in the right direction for Montrell, even though he's pretty optimistic.
Yeah, and with McKenzie, he just had some growing up to do. You and I both remember when he would hang out with DT and Emmanuel and act like DT and Emmanuel. It's like, you're not those guys.
No.
Those guys are on a different level. Isaiah had some growing up to do. I don't necessarily think Montrell had some growing up to do, but it's definitely, this league will humble you quickly. You can be drafted and you could be, oh my God, I'm in the league, and you could be out before you know it. And I feel Montrell's gone through that crucible. As a small school guy, he knew it was going to be there.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, he didn't really expect to be drafted to begin with. I mean, what was he?
Nobody did.
He was making a Zaxby's run, I think, when he got the call back in April of 2022.
Right.
And I remember when his name came up, like, I'll be honest, I knew a little about him. Mainly it was from when Samford upset Florida, and he had a big game.
Yep.
And that gave you hope. But I'll say this. For Montrell, it would have been easy for him to stand there last night and point fingers at, they fired my coordinator, Dwayne Stukes, and then Jerry Rosberg benched me.
Right.
And then with their first pick, they turned around and took a punt returner. Wide receiver, yes, Marvin Mims Jr. Hopefully he's going to play more on offense this year. But first role was as a punt returner last year.
Pro Bowler.
Yeah. And literally could not lead the league in punt returns because teams stopped punting to him after the Buffalo game. So he didn't have enough returns to qualify because he was so good. Think about that for a moment. I mean, but if you disagree with me on this, Cease, tell me. I thought Montrell had a very good camp. And I think if they had not drafted Marvin Mims Jr., I think the Broncos would have been okay throwing him back there for the 2023 season.
I would say I had a better camp than I expected.
Yeah.
So, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, but
of course, because
I can't say it. I can't say it.
I'll say it then.
You can say it. I can't say it. I am literally not allowed to say it. So.
Wait, you're not allowed to say the names Tariq Woolen or Isaiah Pacheco?
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. I let things go, Mase. I don't ever hold on to things too long. Ha! I knew that'd give it a guffaw from you at the Super Bowl.
There are probably people who stared at me hearing that laugh around here. Oh, well.
Like,
if they're not staring at this, hey, I mean.
Yeah, there you go. Got the bling out.
Montrell Washington or Randy Gregory is going to have one of these coming to them. Think, that may stick in the craws of some Broncos fans, right?
Yeah.
Like if you bring up the fact that Melvin Gordon has a Super Bowl ring, if you bring that up to Will Peterson in our digital operation, he may fight you. But I've got no problem with Melvin having a ring. Melvin was always, good with me. So
you guys had shared moments. What about this Montrell Washington clip? Let's set that up and play that for everybody out there.
I think this is a really admirable and mature response. It started with me asking him if he was frustrated when the Broncos cut him. And it led to him basically talking about how the things that went wrong were on himself and not anyone else. He could have blamed circumstances like Rosberg benching him, like Sean Payton and George Payton drafting a punt returner with the first pick with limited draft capital last year. Montrell, again, another reason why he's different than Isaiah McKenzie, took the high road, and I thought had a very mature response, which we're going to listen to right now.
It wasn't as frustrating. I mean, I just felt I guess I just didn't do enough on my end. You never would blame coaches, never would blame players, anything like that. It's always, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's playing, so it's all on me. So I just was young-minded, I guess, and was not doing, as much as I could have to keep myself at the Denver Broncos with them. But, like I say, luckily things worked out. I'm blessed to be here with the Chiefs and in the Super Bowl.
I like that.
Young-minded.
Yeah.
That was an interesting way of putting it, I thought.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that where we're young in the mind and we just don't realize our behaviors or, the opportunity that's in front of us. So all of us have gone through that. I see it in the business we do, Mase. I see it all the time. It's like, you're a little young in the mind, stay on the right track, be good to people. And Montrell's a coachable kid, That's why he was so popular among his teammates.
Yeah. It's the old cliche, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I think Montrell Washington didn't know what he didn't know. And we hear players talk about humbling experiences. I think for Montrell Washington last season, very much a humbling experience getting to the NFL. And he probably needed that. Look, he walks into the Broncos. Yeah, he's a fifth-round pick, but he gets handed a starting job. He got handed the punt returner job. Again, that is one thing similar to him and Isaiah McKenzie back in 2017, that they walked in and the job was given. Marvin Mims Jr., even though he became the punt returner, remember this past year, they were basically dividing it 50-50 between him and Montrell, right?
Yep.
He didn't get the job handed to him. Now, did we think he was going to ultimately earn it? Yeah, we did. Certainly all the signs point in that direction. But but it wasn't putting Sharpie the way it was with Montrell back in 2022. And if you're going to do that as a player, you better have the goods. And unfortunately for the Broncos in 2022, Montrell did not have that because he put the ball on the ground 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Oh, yeah. Mase, let's talk about it, though. Not to belabor the Montrell thing, but just as a coaching kind of stance, if you will. What if a guy got time to develop? What if the guy from Samford wasn't ready for the NFL? Shocker, right? It's one of those things we look back on and go, yeah, no kidding. The guy from Samford wasn't ready for that leap. He could still be on the Broncos practice squad, still be developing, and still be a future, perhaps weapon for this team as a part-time receiver and, full-time special teams guy.
I was surprised the Broncos didn't make more of an effort to keep him on the practice squad.
You keep talented players, keep fast players.
He said to me that some teams reached out after he was waived, but he did also say that when his agent told him one of the teams was the Chiefs, that was it. That's where he wanted to go. Because who doesn't want the ring? And hey, this is the inherent advantage that teams like the Chiefs and 49ers have when they're perennial winners. I mean, the Chiefs, here they are in their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years. The 49ers, not quite as successful, but they have been to 4 conference championship games in 5 years. They are in the conversation year after year. And oh, by the way, they were in the conversation with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Just that a couple years ago, they were kind of trying to carry Jimmy G over the finish line. If not for a 4th quarter meltdown, they beat the Rams in Los Angeles, and it's the Niners, not the Rams, who go to Super Bowl 56, right? I have to get my numbers right with the Roman numerals. By the way, I was thinking about this today. Random tangent here. I am a stone's throw from an exhibit set up by New Orleans' Tourism Authority, because usually at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, there's something to promote next year's game host, right? And of course, so the city of New Orleans, Louisiana has a setup there. And anyway.
You got the Roman numeral thing going.
Yes. So next year's Super Bowl is LIX. 59.
59.
Licks. It's Super Bowl Licks. LIX. I think
If we could only fly into LAX for it. Let's rename the New Orleans airport for that.
Yeah, you should. They should make the New Orleans area code LIX. Yes.
I like it.
Licks. So, I think there's a lot of fun we could have with that. I mean,
It could be quite fun indeed. Licks. Get your licks on.
Super Bowl licks.
You're taking your Super Bowl licks.
Get your kicks with licks. Some hot licks, right?
Not on Route 66.
No. Get some pics of those hot licks at Super Bowl licks.
Uh-huh. You will not see the New York Knicks. We can keep going. We can do this all day long. He's Andrew Mason, everybody, live at the Super Bowl. Mase, you got a big day today talking to CBS people. We're going to have those clips for you tomorrow. Make sure to check them out on the socials, at Mase Denver. Mm-hmm. And you want to do the YouTube thing, Mase?
Yeah, sure. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed already. If you're not, what are you waiting for? Check it out, because then you'll be the first to know when we've dropped a new show, and you can get your daily dose of Broncos goodness right here on Orange and Blue today.
He is Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey. Thanks to Joey behind the scenes. OBT is BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.